Okay. So inshallah, what we're going to do is we're just going to run through and go, inshallah, and cover the basics of fasting, inshallah. If you have any questions, Akhi, alhamdulillah, that's the benefit of you being here. So if you have any questions, inshallah, feel free. All right. So Ramadan and fasting. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in the second chapter, the chapter of the Al-Baqarah, that Ya ayyuhan ladina amanu, O you who believe, kutiba alaykum siyam. Fasting has been prescribed for you, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, the way that it was prescribed for those who came before you. La'allakum tattaqun, with the hopes that you will acquire taqwa. So this taqwa is the focal point of this month of Ramadan. And what is this taqwa? This taqwa means that now developing this heightened degree of awareness and consciousness of reality and the truth. Ultimately, that means God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And everything, because reality is something, the only real truth is God. Everything else is, because he's the only one who is the creator, everything else is creation. So everything else has been brought into existence. And with it being brought into existence, its reality has been established. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so the um, the source reality or the source truth, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else is going to fall into that category of aqidah. So aqidah meaning that it is the explanation of that reality, is the explanation of the truth. So what is it that we believe? So when we say that Allah is the everything that is associated with Allah, meaning Allah is the Allah has no beginning, Allah has no end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over all things. Allah knows all things. Allah hears all things. When we're describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that explanation, right? That's what we know as aqidah. What is it? What is aqidah? It is explaining the truth. Same thing. Jannah, the day of judgment, is the truth. Paradise is the truth. The hellfire is the truth. The what takes place in the grave is the truth. The angels are the truth. The prophets are the truth. So this explanation of reality is what we know as aqidah. So now becoming aware and conscious of that, what does that mean? It means that as I'm living my life and as I'm establishing my priorities, I'm making decisions, I am setting goals even, that those goals and those priorities and that motivation is going to come from this aqidah. It is going to be based on the truth. My himma, or my determination, my focus, and what I'm going to classify as important and categorize as levels of importance, those are going to be based upon my aqidah. It's going to be based upon this taqwa. If we don't have this taqwa, we may know about it, and when I say know about it, meaning on a conceptual level, we may understand that God exists on a conceptual level. We may understand that there's a day of judgment on a conceptual level. But understanding it on a conceptual level and even accepting that on a conceptual level, that's required to be Muslim. But it is that process of going from that understanding and that basic understanding and conceptual understanding and moving now towards a practical, moving to where it becomes a practical reality, that no, like this thing has um, it has a reality to it that you can only acquire based on experience. You have to make an effort, you have to do certain things for it to just be move from just being a conceptual understanding to now where it is a practical reality, so that it impacts your decisions, it impacts the way that you live your life, it impacts the way that you decide what your priority or right, your priorities are in your life. Okay, so fasting is supposed to help with all of that. How? Number one, during the month of Ramadan specifically, because Ramadan is the month of the Quran. And the Quran, because it is Kalam Allah, it is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is through the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we now engage in this communication, and we develop this relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran. So that's the reason why we spend as much time during Ramadan reading the Quran as possible. Now, because Arabic itself may, especially for a lot of, I don't like to use the word new Muslims, but people who are just entering into Islam and whatever, because there are people that are They've been Muslim for, I've met Muslims that have been Muslim for literally decades. And I don't mean like just two, I mean like three moving into four. And they still couldn't recite Al-Fatiha properly. They couldn't read Quran. And that was just because, again, what are your priorities? Um, Back then, also, it was an issue also, do you even have anybody who is capable of being able to teach you? So sometimes it's availability, sometimes it's the responsibility of the person, sometimes it's laziness, sometimes there are certain intellectual hurdles that the person can't get over, whatever, time-wise and this and that. But it doesn't mean that just because a person is I've met new Muslims that, mashallah, they were on point and they had the time, they had a teacher, everything was there, mashallah. So it had a nice ribbon on it, and they learned how to read Quran, not understand it, but they could read it on a basic level. They did that within their first 6 months, right? So when we're talking about reading Quran, yes, um, part of it is engaging in the process of learning how to read Quran if you don't know how to already. Also, it has to do with the translation. Now, I want to make a note here because we're doing this whole video for, I got a lot of, mashallah, a lot of text messages from converts, reverts, whatever you want to call them, new Muslims, about how do I engage in Ramadan? And I shouldn't even, because now I get those questions also from people who are born Muslim, have been Muslim their whole lives. But so the thing we have to understand about, because especially if you can't read the Arabic, a lot of times people will try to engage in reading the translation as much as possible. Um, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you have the right intention, as long as you're putting your trust and your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you from any misunderstandings. Um, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand that translation is not the Quran. It is the most basic form of exegesis, or what is known as tafsir. So it is the most basic explanation of the Quran on just strictly a linguistic level. And that's the reason why a lot of times when you're reading these translations, you'll see that, they'll have brackets, or they'll have parentheses, and there'll be words, and there'll be certain things inside of those brackets or those parentheses, because what they're saying is that, look, I could translate this for you directly, and and try to get it as close grammatically as possible, but it may not convey the same meaning that is intended by the Arabic. So that's the reason why they put all of these things in there. Sometimes even in the Arabic, it's not there. There's a certain degree of like, there's, I don't want to say an assumption, but there is a prerequisite level of knowledge and understanding in order to be able to read Quran, just the Arabic, so that you can understand now that, okay, this is what this is saying, and this is who is saying it, and this is what is meant, and these are the other possibilities in terms of meanings as well. And this is what, in the WhatsApp group, this is what we're talking about when the brother was asking about the Arabic. Classical Arabic is way different than Fusha, is way different than the Arabic that is spoken, Ammi Arabic, which is spoken right now. And Arabs will tell you that. And even those Arabs from those places in the world that, mashallah, they still have some degree of that quality to the Arabic. You have places like Yemen, Mauritania, certain places even in Saudi. So there's places outside of the academic world where, mashallah, they do speak a very high level of quality in regards to the Arabic in comparison to the Fusha. Okay, so just understand that when you're reading the Arabic, when you're reading the translation, it's just a translation. It is not the Quran. You cannot say that, oh, in the Quran it says blah, 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 and I'm going to give you the English. Especially when you're talking to non-Muslims, because what happens when we do that, we don't open up, we kick open a door. And what we're saying is when we start doing it, we're letting them know that it's permissible for them to do it. So when they start reading the English and they start getting, so like, kill all the infidels. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Right? That's not what that means. And that's not what there's a context that is there. The Arabic is there. That the Arabic terminology is saying something. You have to take into there's a even a grammatical context. So even like what verses come before that, what verses come after it, what chapter is it in, what chapter comes before that, what chapter comes after that, what is the historical context. There's a whole lot that goes in. There's something like, depending on how you want to categorize them, there's something like 15 or 18 different fields of study that you have to engage in order to be able to do a proper explanation of the Quran. So when we don't have that level of respect for the academic process, then what happens is that we misrepresent that Quran, and then now non-Muslims feel comfortable that they can just grab a translation and they're saying, well, this is what the Quran says. This is what the translator says, right? So there's a huge difference. Can't emphasize that enough. I do recommend highly that the real key to understanding the Quran is understanding the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I always recommend to brothers and sisters when I give them their shahadah, and I usually even here at this, since I've been at this masjid doing imamat, I give them a copy of the seerah. I give them a copy of the biography of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because once they read that, and then now that kind of like sets the stage, they sets the stage for them, and then now when they go and they're reading that translation, they have a degree of context and a certain amount of respect for the process of the Quran, if you want to call it that the process in which the Quran was revealed, but more importantly, to whom the Quran was revealed, and his life example, and that example. And once you understand that he's rahmatan lil alameen, that he's a mercy for the entirety of creation, now you look at that Quran in a whole different light. So during this month of Ramadan, it would definitely not be a waste of time to engage in reading the seerah of the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay.
Okay.
So you have a question?
Yeah, I do have one. So when I took my shahada, you gave me that book. Now, should I read that first, or should I start with the Quran?
You can pair them up. You can do both, because the big thing is that you're understanding that you're understanding each one's place, and you're understanding like that this is going to help me with that, right? So and that's the big thing, so that you've been maintaining this connection. And because sometimes people take their shahada and they're just gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's you can try to stay in contact with them, but life happens.
I look at the bigger picture of everything as, when my time is called, understanding the Prophet, peace be upon him, is very important part of it. So I don't want to read the Quran and not understand the contents behind it, of why this was given to him and everything. So I just didn't know if that one, I understand they both are very important, but I want to make sure that I'm hitting it in all angles, if that makes sense.
Right. If there's a preference, definitely read the seerah first. Read the biography first, and then when you actually read the Quran, I'm sure you've like touched on some of the reading of Quran, right?
Yes, I've read some of it. Yes.
You will feel like you'll experience what I'm saying, right? But it may not come across in the words that I'm using, but you will feel a difference after you get done reading about the biography of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you go back now and read the Quran. It will feel completely different.
Okay.
It will have a completely completely different flavor to it. There's a certain sense of gravitas, right, that you acquire from having this background and that stage being set. So it does give you.
I believe like once I get the understanding of who Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was, I will be able to better understand more about being a true Muslim, I feel. And I just don't want to jump right into the Quran where I'm kind of having questions because the words don't come off right and things like that, which is one of my concerns. Not that it's stopping me, but I just want to make sure I'm fully covered in all angles.
There's I've got it on the I think it's under the coronavirus thing, the Ma'arif al-Quran, that tafsir that's on there.
Yeah.
If you can get a copy of that, it comes in 8 volumes. It seems intimidating because the volumes are like this thick. Okay. But when you open it up and you see like the margins and the gaps and the double spacing,
Yeah.
you realize that, very easily they could have took that 8 and put it into 4,
Right.
okay. But that is a quality tafsir or explanation to get you going, and it'll answer a lot of questions. It'll fill in a lot of blanks. And
Okay.
because even in the Quran itself, because say for instance with Qasas al-Nabiyyin, so when it goes into the stories of the prophets, like the story of Musa, the story of Nuh, so he's gonna give you some of that background information that is there, that doesn't necessarily have to do directly with the life of the prophet, but he's going to give you something about their lives that's coming from other sources, so that way you can understand those better as well.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So fasting. So fasting when it's farad. So during the month of Ramadan, when fasting is farad, we're not going to go into, because we got different categories. Farad means that specifically during the month of Ramadan, or when it's associated with an oath, or when you're doing qada. So if you miss a day of Ramadan and now Ramadan is over and you're making up that fast is something that is farad on you. It's just like when you miss a prayer, when you have to make it up, it's still an obligation. That's why I'm making it up, because it's an obligation, right? Okay. So the when you're talking about fasting during the month of Ramadan, because it's an obligation, you have to establish your intention from the night before. The difference is that when it's nafil, when it's just extra and you're just doing it on your own, you can, up until zawal, this before dhuhr comes in, before the sun reaches its peak, its apex
Okay.
for the day, okay, the zenith for the day. Before that time, if you say, for instance, this was 2 weeks ago, and I woke up at 9:30. I haven't eaten anything. I didn't drink anything. The sun has been up, right? And I decide I want to fast. I can do that, and and from that point, I can now continue not eating and not drinking all the way until Maghrib, and that will count as a full day of
Okay.
fasting.
Okay.
Okay. With Ramadan, and when it's an obligation, it must be before Fajr time comes in. That's the key point. So Fajr time, we say before Fajr comes in. So say, I think today was here for
5.
us, I think it was 4:13.
Yeah.
Okay. So that 4:13, that's the deadline. Like, you must be done eating, drinking, whatever. You have to be done at that point in time. And it's always recommended because we generally rely on these prayer schedules, and
Correct.
sometimes they're wrong,
So,
they're off by a minute or two.
so I have the Muslim Pro app. So I want to make sure I'm right, because if I think I did it wrong then this morning, because I've done some trials over the last 3 weeks. It just, depending on what you have in the WhatsApp going on. I thought it was before sunrise you had to finish eating.
No, because on there, so sunrise, it's called ishraq. So sunrise is, okay. So you got 2 time periods, okay? You got Fajr time when Fajr comes in,
Right.
right? And then you have that window of opportunity. So that window of opportunity for you to make your Fajr on time comes from that
Okay.
beginning time, right? Until now, when the actual sun itself, so the sphere of the sun itself, as soon as it starts to break the horizon, Fajr's done.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what they call sunrise. And then there's roughly about a 15-20 minute period where there's no salat, no nothing. Okay, then after that, then you can, like, if you missed your fajr, you can make it up during that time. That window, that's for fajr. So sunrise is saying fajr is over. You want
Okay.
that time that it starts, that fajr begins. That's the one that you want to keep your eye on. And I
That
would recommend knock off
okay.
3 minutes of it. So say, for instance, if it was 4:13, have everything done by 4:10.
Okay. So really, I need to be up, because like I set my alarm for 3:30, 4 o'clock, because I know Fajr comes in right then and there on a regular day when it's not Ramadan, and I need to be eating before Fajr comes in.
Right. You need to be
Okay.
done before Fajr comes in.
Correct. Before
Right.
it comes in. Okay, so that just so like today, since I was not aware, I woke up ahead of time. I made salah before the sunrise. Am I even? Would I have to make up today? Pretty much.
You will need to make up today, but you keep fasting today.
Yeah. Still keep going today.
Yeah, you still keep going because like this is because of the obligation. You want to go back and make sure that it's done right. But at the same
Okay.
time, it's different than because it's different when it's done because of ignorance. I didn't know, as opposed to insolence. So
Okay.
insolence meaning like I was lazy, I just
Yeah.
disregarded it, I didn't care, you know. So
Yeah. No, I was up. I was up way ahead of time. I thought that I was not aware that um I thought by the time Fajr ends, by the time the sun rises, everything has to be done. Your day is now started. So.
and that's why we're doing this because this
Okay.
there's a lot of there's a lot of brothers that are out there that are confused as well. I was getting a lot of text messages,
Okay.
questions, and I need clarification. And like I said, some of them are coming from Muslims from different like from Africa and India, and you know they've been Muslim their whole lives, but now they're just getting serious about their Islam.
Okay. So then it would take me to my next part. Inside that window when Fajr first starts, do I have until sunrise to pray to make salah, or do I need to have it done before then?
Correct. So when it says Fajr, so can you let's see here.
I have a iPad, so if you need me to go into something, I can go in just to see like the salah times. I can check that out.
Okay, yeah. So if you have Muslim Pro on there,
Yes,
okay. So if you look at that, and it'll say Fajr, and then
correct,
it'll say sunrise.
correct.
Okay. Fajr, that's the beginning.
Okay,
As soon as that time, as soon as it says Fajr, you can begin making your Fajr at that time.
got it. Okay,
Sunrise, before
done.
that time, before that don't start, you have to be done. You have to be done with your salat before that
Got
sunrise
it.
time comes in.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so your eating time is going to be as soon as the sun sets. So as soon as Maghrib comes in. So when you're looking at the time for Maghrib,
Right.
I mean, what is it today?
Today it's 7:46.
7:45, 7:40. Here's 7:47. You're a little further south.
Right.
So 7:47. So at 7:47, this is I can eat. I can eat till when? I can eat until from 7:47 until that time where Fajr comes in. So here in the morning, 4:13, it should tomorrow morning it'll probably drop to like 4:12 or 4:11.
Okay.
So any that whole time period, okay, you're free to eat, drink, marital relations. You're good. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
That just changed the game a lot.
Yeah, because it adds a little bit. You have to get up a little bit earlier,
But
and
yeah. But
right.
alhamdulillah, that's good. That's good though. I mean, it's a test.
But this is now the we're gonna talk about. We can cover it right now. But so the big thing also is like this time that you're getting up. Okay, it's called suhoor. That's what you're doing. So the food that you're going to eat a little bit more of food before the actual fast begins. Um, that's called suhoor time, and that meal is called suhoor. And what do you usually eat?
We've been doing like we went to the store, got a whole bunch of fruits, vegetables, very light food, coconut water,
Okay, good.
almond milk.
Stay away from fruit.
Stay away from fruit.
Break your fast with fruit, but not fruit in the morning.
Okay.
This is a dietary thing because fruit is it's a simple carb. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to get a sugar rush, and then you're going to come down off of those sugars, right?
Yeah.
And it only lasts like about an hour, 2 hours at the
Yeah.
most, you know, and
Yeah.
then like you get this sugar crash. Okay, so you want to go into what's called complex carbs. So your
Yeah.
like a oatmeal.
Yeah, the stuff, oats, grains, things like that to make it last
Exactly.
long. Okay.
These are the things that the slow burners, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to get that slow burn out of it. Also, be careful with proteins that are heavy to and hard to digest. It's good you need proteins because if you don't get the proteins in the morning, your body, as you start to get hungry, your body will actually start to break down proteins. So there's three things that you want to try to get in, if at all possible. Okay, so you want to get in your carbs. You want complex carbs, and you with those and that's your, like, again, like we're talking about with the oatmeal and what have you. Okay, grains, and that could be like a high grain muffins, and there's all different types of things you can do.
Right.
The other thing is you want to get in your sugars, but you want those sugars to be like in a healthy form. That's where the dates come in at. Okay, so because with the dates, dates are a superfood. So with
Right.
the dates, you're getting not just the sugars that you're going to need to maintain your, because sugar is a balance. Because you don't want to go hypo or hyperglycemic, because that's when you start getting like the headaches and this and that and the other,
Yeah.
lightheaded, and okay, but you're also getting your um, that's like a law. I have antioxidants stuck in my head, but electrolytes.
Okay, Gatorades and things. So
Yeah.
is in the morning are dates okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Like you can go like mashallah. Dates are it's amazing. It's a superfood. So even if you only ate dates, so say for instance, you just had like, say for instance, 7 dates, and and make sure that you stayed hydrated. You could fast off of that comfortably.
Okay.
You might be something you might need to get used to because it's your first year of fasting. Okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like
I grabbed a lot of dates, and then we have a lot of coconut water and
coconut
things
water is
like
good
that.
again because of the electrolytes and everything again, right?
Okay.
It helps you to stay hydrated. Yeah. So, but stay away from if you're going to do proteins, make sure that your proteins are peanut butter and things like that. Your nuts,
Okay.
okay, and beans and things like that. These are because with the beans you're going to get you're going to get healthy carbs, and you're also going to get the proteins in there as well. That'll
Okay.
keep you from burning up muscle. The other thing is chicken breast. So chicken, fish. Um, Usually, like a lot of people, they're comfortable with like tuna in the morning or something like that, or
Yeah.
salmon. So those things are, but try to stay away from beef and things like that because those are very heavy. It's hard
Yeah.
for your body to digest. It'll weigh you down. You start to feel tired and fatigued real quick
Okay.
because it's not digesting. And be careful about overeating. A lot of the um, what they call like, oh, like my stomach hurts, I'm so hungry. No, actually what happens is the stomach is like a balloon. So your natural stomach size is roughly about the size of your fist. Okay, when you eat, it fills it up, and then depending on what you eat, based on like the stomach acids and everything, so it actually expands and it bloats. And then that process, now when you overeat and it's like now you have this like huge expansion, that contraction process also, a lot of times that's what people are feeling, is their stomach is actually like there's nothing coming into the system. Okay, and now the stomach is actually coming back to something close
Yeah.
to normal. Okay, so so a lot of people like, you're fine, your body is just actually going back to normal
Yeah.
because of previous extravagance, right? Overindulgence. So so that's that. Let's see what we got here. Some of this we just want to make sure that we cover the
I have a. So I know we're not supposed to put any when we make wudu. Do I still clean my mouth out?
you're still going to do it. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is what we're going to call this, so the mufsidat. So what is going to break your fast? Okay, so your wudu and everything is still going to be the same. You're just going to be more cautious and careful about, like the water. Of course, I hope you're not doing this, but like the snorting of the
No.
water and like,
Yeah. Trying to get a good taste
yeah,
in really quick.
yeah.
Things like it.
You don't have to do all that. um, Same thing with rinsing out the mouth. Okay, so like you don't want to be like sitting there gargling but and this is the thing, if some does go down the back of your throat, but it's on accident, you were cautious, you were careful, okay, but it just happened, it doesn't break your fast.
Okay.
Okay, the same thing if especially when you're not used to fasting, and even for those who are used to fasting, I say used to, like I've been doing Ramadan for years, but the first like few days they're at work or whatever, after a certain meeting or whatever, they pass a water fountain. Every day they always stop there and get a drink out of that water fountain. And their mind was on something else. They stopped and drank out of the water fountain. They were like, oh, it doesn't break your fast.
Right.
Okay, because it was an accident. Now,
Okay.
so that goes for eating and drinking. So if you put something in your mouth and then you're like, oh wow, I'm fasting, astaghfirullah, your fast is still valid. Um, you of course are not going to eat anything else, but also if you have something still in your mouth and you realize you're fasting, you need to spit that out.
Okay.
Okay. um, Same thing for like if something gets stuck in your teeth, or and it's in your mouth and it's time to start fasting, or you have that situation, where you put something in your mouth, anything roughly about the size of like a pea, actually a little bit smaller than that. Okay, that needs to come out.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, the quickest way of explaining what breaks your fast is the obvious. Okay. If you eat, if you drink intentionally, um, marital relations, or because like we got to keep it all the way real.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
for
you know what I'm
I
saying?
got
Like,
it. I got it. I got it.
yeah,
Makes sense. Yeah.
anything, like any form of um, sensual pleasure that is going to cause you to ejaculate.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, outside of that, it's something that is going to go into the body. All right. It doesn't matter how it really gets into the body. So say for instance, some things are going to be included, but some things aren't, though, at the same time. So, of course, anything like medications that you take orally, all right, but also medications that even if they're like a suppository or something like that, so even if it's going through the rectum, suppositories, enemas, things like that, all of those are going to be are off limits also. Okay, because even within the intestinal tract itself, there's still an absorption process that takes
Okay.
place. Okay, and even when people are severely hydrated, that's one of the ways that they help to rehydrate them, like if it's in an emergency situation. Okay, same thing for like IVs. Of course, you're not swallowing anything, but they're putting that liquid into your blood vein. All right, so um, same thing for sniffing something. That's the reason why smoking. So smoking, you have to be careful. Some people, they really like the different types of incense and everything. So that's not something you don't want to be like in a room with the incense going and sitting there and inhaling that smoke. Okay.
So incense are no good either.
You can, but again, like I'm not going to be
That's
sitting
like,
over the top of it.
yeah. I mean, I light incense in the morning around the house, and then I just
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
okay,
that's
okay.
fine. But we're talking about kind of like basically like you're sitting there just inhaling it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, yeah. I mean, okay.
And even if you did do that, like you're in a tough spot anyway, because you get ready to have a rough day of fasting if you sit there
Yeah.
with all that on the back of your throat and everything. Um, uh, but things like, for instance, eye drops for people who wear contacts. Okay, so
Yeah.
wearing eye drops, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay, with the ears, you have to be careful. There's some situations where putting things in your ears could possibly break your fast. But again, that's kind of like more of a specific situation kind of thing.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what we got here.
Do you stay off of social media during this time? I follow a lot of
Yeah,
Muslim
we're
things.
gonna get into that right after this. Um, Okay. Usually people ask about vomiting also, like what happens like if you vomit. So if you vomit, um, vomiting is going to break your wudu, but it's not if it's more than a mouthful. Okay,
Awful.
that will break your wudu, but it will not break your fast unless the person it's self-induced. So if a person is making themselves throw up, then yes, that will break their fast.
Okay.
Okay. Another thing that is not allowed is if the vomit comes up and it's a mouthful and whatever they decide they're going to like swallow and take it back down, right? Then that's also that is also an issue. Okay.
Okay.
Again, a mouthful or more.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying not to hit you with all the extra stuff right now. If you have miswak, akhi, yeah, that's one of the things. So if brushing your teeth, so you cannot brush your teeth. All right, because we use toothpaste and mashallah and mouthwash and everything else. Okay, so you want to make sure that that's the last thing that you do before Fajr comes in. So usually what people do is they take care of all their eating and drinking, everything. The last thing that they'll do is when they go to make wudu for Fajr Salah, they're going to brush their teeth at that time because there's no toothpaste or nothing like that after the fact.
Okay.
Okay. Now, dry brushing. Dry brushing, you're fine.
Okay. Dry brushing. Okay.
Okay. So dry brushing, you're okay. Specifically with the miswak. You can use a toothbrush also, but specifically with the miswak.
Oh, that's
That's
what it's for. Okay. Okay.
yes.
Now you don't go chewing that, right? Don't chew that because
No, now
okay.
hold on, because see now, because a lot of
I
people,
heard.
because we're used to some other things also. So there are chew sticks, especially like the African chew sticks and everything. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's usually darker on the outside also,
Mhm.
and they got flavored ones and all that. These are two totally different animals, actually.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah, yeah, these are two totally different animals. Okay, so yeah, so what we're talking about, the miswak is coming from siwak, and what it is the branches of the tree. When you soak the edge of it in water, what happens is it'll bloat up some, and the outer bark it'll just peel away. Then the fibers on the inside, after you kind of like you'll chew them on them just to like crunch them up to break those fibers up. It's
Right.
like when you get a knot in a muscle, right? You got to work it out. So you just work those fibers a little bit, and then those fibers will actually open up and become like a brush.
Okay.
The natural fluids and I don't know if it's an oil or whatever, but the natural the juices or what have you, whatever you want to call it, that's inside of the actual the stem, the branch itself, is actually good for your teeth and for your gums.
Got you. Okay. Makes sense. Mashallah.
Okay, so yeah, two totally different things. And no, it is considered also bad etiquette with that you use that publicly.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
walking around with it
I've been.
hanging out of your mouth, or
Yeah.
or sitting there,
I've
doing.
been to a few halal stores and they've been. I didn't know if that was what it was, but I seen it hanging out their mouth. So I was like, I didn't know how to use it, so I never used it.
No, akhi, yeah, that's considered um, poor social graces.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But there's other things like cupping is good during that time. There's a brother here who does cupping, so if you have any medical issues, mashallah, he's also a convert brother. May Allah Ta'ala bless him. Um, yeah, so that's fine. So okay, we talked about suhoor. Mhm. That's not an issue because we're using the prayer times. Okay, traveling. Just so you know, so just in case, so if you are traveling, and what is, so if you become a traveler means that you're intending on traveling 48 miles or more from the boundaries of, so like for instance, this is the village of Schaumburg. Okay, so as soon as I am intending on leaving those, going 48 miles beyond the boundaries of Schaumburg, I'm going to be considered to be in Safar, or I'm going to consider to be a traveler. At that
Okay.
point in time, the that's when I do qasr. So that means that the obligation of the 4 rakats for Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha, they become 2. So now I'm going to do 2 for Fajr, 2 for Dhuhr, 2 for Asr, 3 for Maghrib, 2 for Isha. Okay. But one of the other things is that the fasting, even during the month of Ramadan, that fasting is not an obligation. You can fast if you want to, and it will count. But if it's going to put you into difficulty, because of your traveling and being away from, your creature comforts and those things which help make um, um, help to facilitate fasting. Okay, if you're going to be away from that, then it is permissible. You're not committing a sin by not fasting if you are in a state of suffer, if you are traveling. All right, it's your choice. If you want to fast, beautiful, and it will count. And you can even consider extra reward because you're taking upon yourself this difficulty because of the obligation itself, just strictly for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you don't fast, it's not like, oh my gosh, like, what kind of Muslim are you? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Because the
Okay.
point, again, is taqwa. The point is not to just make yourself hungry and miserable. The point is developing this discipline and breaking the desires, being able to go without, and having that the discipline to maintain that, and also understanding that the what do you call it? Sabr, the patience that you develop, because that's what we're doing. I'm hungry, but I have to patiently wait until Maghrib comes. I have to patiently wait for the sun to go down. And then on the other side, on the flip side of that, now I go from patience, I go to shukr, I go to gratitude, because now as soon as the sun goes down, I'm able to eat, I'm able to drink, and that first drink of water is amazing, right?
So speaking of breaking the fast, now I have the fortress. I think it's the Fortress of a Muslim. I believe I have that book. So I found in there breaking a fast, and then also you break it with a date and water, then mix the law, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so as soon as it comes in, it's makruh, or it's disliked for you to delay breaking your fast. So when the time comes in, again, give it a minute or two. So if the Maghrib time, if Maghrib time is saying, like, 7:47, just give it a minute or two, because this is an obligation. This is not one of those things where you just want to, like, rush into it. I went all this time. I can wait another minute or two to make sure that the sun is down, and then I'll eat, I'll drink, and then, like you said, then I'll go pray Maghrib Salah.
Okay.
Okay, and then usually after that, that's when you get your meal in. Okay. So what exempts you from fasting? Fasting is an obligation on every adult, sane, free Muslim. And part of that, now, as an extension, you also have to be healthy enough to fast. Again, because the whole point is not to make us miserable.
Right.
So it's not an obligation on people who have psychological, they're not all there, psychologically. It's not an obligation on children before they reach puberty. It's not an obligation on those people who have medical issues that require them to have to take medication. Usually, a lot of Muslims, it's very hard to them because they have diabetes. They really want to fast, but it turns their whole sugar situation, it gets real complicated, and they end up putting themselves into danger. So if there is a justifiable reason not to fast, then there is an alternative. There is an alternate way of dealing with that. So you do have an alternative, and we'll talk about that. Again, I'm not trying. I don't want to load in you or anybody who's watching. I don't want to load you down with all kinds of extra information. Although I've already done that to a certain extent, but it is what it is now. Okay, so same thing for, like, when sisters are pregnant. Okay, or when a sister is pregnant and she can't fast, if she can safely fast and she wants to without harming herself or the fetus or the baby, then that's fine. She can fast. It's not like she can't fast. Again, it's her choice. But again, do not put yourself in a medical situation
Right, right.
where you're going to hurt yourself, right? Sisters also, when they're menstruating or after they have the baby, they go through a period called nifas, where the kind of like the body is cleansing itself of the whole, the reproductive system, or those parts of the reproductive system that were used for the baby. So she's not going to fast during those times. Okay. Oh, they put this in here. Obviously, brother, if you think you're gonna die,
Yeah, go ahead and break that fast,
go
right?
ahead and break
Yeah.
that fast, right? But at the same time, like that's got to be a legit.
Yeah, you
You
can't
know,
hold on anymore. You passing
yeah,
out. Yeah.
it's because like, mashallah, we get people working in offices in the air conditioning, and like, I can't take it anymore. If you don't stop
No,
doing
no.
it, stop being silly. You'll be fine. That's the
Yeah.
whole point. We get so used to convenience, and we get so used to indulgence, and we get so used to getting what we want, how we want, when we want it, that the notion or the idea of having to even suffer through, it's a relatively short period of time, even in the summertime, if you think about it. There are people in the world today that go with little to no food for multiple days on end. Um, and that's not out of choice. It's just out of sheer necessity. Like they don't.
Right.
There are parents that are making the choice between, okay, I have these children, and I have this little bit of food. So now, do I feed my kids, or do I feed myself so that way I can work in order to be able to get more food for tomorrow? Like
Right.
these are real decisions,
Right. Right. Right.
you know. And that's one of the things that we need to kind of keep in mind, is that the vast majority of the people in the world, Akhi, they don't live
Right.
with the degrees of luxury that you and I that we enjoy on a daily basis. So the for us having to sacrifice these luxuries for such a limited period of time, there should be absolutely no complaining.
No problem. Right.
Yeah. Um, ya Allah, make it easy. Yeah. So anyway, so if for the people who can't fast anyway, there's a thing. It's called fidya, and that's the alternative. And fidya means that now you're going to feed people, and there's certain weights that are associated to half a saw and all that. So there's certain so you're going to feed people instead of you being hungry. You're going to feed those people who are hungry, and
Right.
that's
Right.
the alternative. Okay.
So during this time, this would be a good opportunity to maybe go to a what do you call it, a Hesed house, or anybody on the road or something who needs a sandwich or whatever, help them out. This is the
This is that time, Akhi, Muslims during this month of Ramadan. This is that time, Akhi, where like Muslims bring their A game. Okay, so you're
okay.
increasing in everything. You're increasing in your salat. You're increasing. And remember, I told you you asked about social media. Okay, so there's two things that we're. Number one, the first thing is avoid sins and fulfill obligations. That's step one. All that other extra stuff, it doesn't even enter into the discussion until these two things are taken care of. I must be
Okay.
fulfilling all my obligations, which means I need to be making my salat on time. Um, I need to make sure that I'm not eating anything that is haram when I am breaking my fast. I need to make sure that the money that I'm earning when I go to work, that it's not haram. I need to make sure that that I'm doing everything. I'm fulfilling the obligations of my family members, my neighbors. I'm fulfilling all my obligations, whether that means I'm supposed to do something or I'm not supposed to do something. I'm fulfilling those obligations. And
Okay.
part of that is that we have to be very careful about how we spend our time, because time is also a resource. It also has a right, the same way money does. And where social media and all that comes in is that a lot of times we commit sins with social media and the internet in general. Something that's related to, has to do something with the screen. So whether that's gaming, whether that's the time that we spend on social media, on our cell phones, whether that's the TVs or laptops or tablets, We end up looking at things that we're not supposed to be looking at. So it may pop up and we didn't have an intention for it, but then you end up looking at it after the fact and now you're jammed up, right? We listen to things that we shouldn't be listening to. And now there's a whole nother, because part of that is we're supposed to be very careful about our tongues. And there's two things related to the tongue, right? So we use it to speak and we use it to taste.
Mm-hmm.
So one is having to do with the words that come out, and the other has to do with the food that is going in. So with the words that are coming out, no lying, no slander, no gossip, no backbiting, no profanity. But now we got a whole nother issue, because our thumbs have become our tongues,
Sounds right. Yeah.
right? So, and then the bad part about it is that when we would say something, it would live on maybe in the person's memory, but human beings are human beings. And a lot of times, like, we forget exact wording and this and that and the other. Whereas now, these things live on, right? Like a person can just scroll up and it's still there. Like people are suffering because of things that they put in social media, and it could have been like 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't die. It doesn't go away. So these things have taken on a life of their own, and they've become monsters on their own. And the level of damage, because we casually do it, we're doing so much of it, texting and engaging in social media. We do so much of it that we, through what we do and what we are taking in from other people, we're becoming more and more desensitized to it. And that's definitely not good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so during Ramadan, that we want to try to um,
Remove it.
yeah, shut it down as much as possible, but don't just shut it down for Ramadan. Like, shut it down and look at it and think about the difference in terms of quality of life. Like, okay, when you, because like you got people that they're spending 6 hours altogether, all total, on their cell phones daily. They're spending 6 hours just on their cell phones daily. That's like a job.
Yeah.
You're getting paid for that. You're paying them for that. But 6 hours. If you think about it, so now when you remove yourself from that, what did you spend your time on then? You
Right.
read more Quran and you did more dhikr, you had more quality family time, and strengthening those family bonds and relationships, there's, the sins that you avoided. So look at the difference in the quality of life and take a moment and reflect on that, so that when Ramadan ends, it isn't like kind of like I call it the rubber band effect. Um, I use it during Ramadan, and I also use it for young people. When you tell somebody, like, you can't do it, like, no, you can't do it, you can't do it, no, you can't do it right now, you can't do it right now, right? Ramadan is during Ramadan, you can't do it, and you're sitting here, and every time that you're holding yourself back, what happens is you're pulling that rubber band back every day further and further and further, and then when Shawwal comes and Ramadan is over, it's like, okay, those restrictions and those limitations have been lifted. So what happens is you let go of that rubber band and pew, off you go, right? And end up and this is where a lot of Muslims say, I don't know what happened. I was doing so good during Ramadan, and now, like, right after Ramadan, I'm actually doing worse than before Ramadan.
Right.
Right? It's that rubber band effect. So it's not just about disengaging, but it's disengaging and realizing and contrasting and seeing the difference that it makes when you take this nonsense out of your life.
Correct.
And see the difference and see how your life improves and how your relationship with Allah improves and your relationships with your loved ones improve. There's so many divorces even that are taking place now, and what do they say, like a 50 to 60% of divorces are taking place, and there's social media and the internet has played in has some what do you call it, played some key role in that divorce. That's insane. Whole families are being broken up because of the internet and social media. It's insane. So we want to be careful. Be careful with the TVs. Be careful with the internet. Be careful with your as you're interacting with creatures, with human beings, whether that's through social media or whether that's directly. That
Yeah.
includes your family members living in the house. Be careful because as we start to get hungry, sugar levels get low. We start to, especially in the very beginning, the first like week,
Yeah.
10 days or so, and we're not used to uh, that feeling of hunger. We start to get hangry, right? We start to get hangry and
Yeah.
we want to lash out. And this is where you realize that silence is golden.
Yeah.
And being able to respect each other's boundaries and just saying, you know what, we're getting closer to the end of the fast, and I know you're probably like trying to hold on right now. So let's be very careful about how we engage with one another. And if you do happen to lapse and lash out, I'm not going to hold it against you. I get it.
Right.
I got it. We're good. Okay.
So
So
of course, I try to go around the first 10 days. I heard Ramadan comes in series every 10 days or every few days. It plays a role. Is there something in the first 10 days that I believe I heard mercy? I was listening to a podcast and it said something about being
yeah,
mercy.
there's mention of it, right? Yeah.
Is there anything I'm supposed to be
The
doing?
whole thing, look, Akhi. So the whole thing, okay, the whole of Ramadan, when you're saying, because the word isn't even mercy, it's rahma, okay, and a rahma, mercy is probably um, when you're translating Arabic terminology, you by default, you are left with a very generic
Word.
remnant,
Yeah. Yeah.
like because of the terminology. So you say rahma, and rahma means mercy. Ooh, sheikh means like this is the worst translation. Like this is the worst way of translating this word because it just means so much more. The
Yeah.
same now, maghfirah, you say forgiveness. Yeah, that's a little bit more accurate. Um, Now, is rahma correct? It is correct, but it's not accurate. It's kind of like, yeah, it hit the target, but it's not near the bullseye.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but these things, Akhi, it's not, you have to look at these things as part and parcel of each other throughout the whole month of Ramadan.
Okay.
Okay? So they'll say rahma, and then they'll say maghfirah, and then freedom from the hellfire. Okay, being
Okay.
saved from the
Right.
hellfire. But that's your whole point through the whole thing. And these things are these three things are inexorably interwoven with each other. So
That's what Ramadan covers. Is it covers all parts that save you from the hellfire and
right,
show you
exactly.
mercy. Okay.
So if I'm getting the maghfirah of Allah, that's also the rahmah of Allah. And if I'm getting the
Right.
maghfirah of Allah and the rahmah of Allah, then that leads to what? Like that's the whole. Why do I get saved from the hellfire? Not because of anything I did. I get saved from the hellfire because of the maghfirah and the rahmah of Allah. Right. So
Right.
it isn't even so much that you can separate these three things, that they're always they're the link and the attachment and the relationship between these three things are you. There's no way that you can separate them.
Right.
Okay, they're
Okay.
interwoven together. They're three parts of the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, um, I'm trying to think of any other questions that usually pop up or
You got any questions, please?
Salat al-Tarawih, the extra prayers. Okay,
Okay.
here's the thing, because we talked about like doing the fulfilling the obligations, and we talked about the fulfilling the rights and like the basics. Uh, Now, when you're talking about extra, there's we talked about spending as much time as possible with the Quran. The other thing is now you have what's called Salatul Tarawih, and that is these 20 rakats that would normally be prayed in the masjid. And now people are like, like tripping out, like, I don't, I haven't memorized the whole Quran. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to do 20 at home? Like, that's a lot. I don't know if I could do that. Look, this is about where you are at.
Right.
Okay, where are you at in your Islam? And you want to push yourself. That's that's the big thing. So push yourself to. For some people, it's easier for them to push themselves to do more dhikr, and like astaghfirullah. or sending peace and blessings, salawat ala nabi, right? And they're learning the Arabic also through the repetition. Okay. For some people, just making 2 extra rakats. So during that time of suhoor, for instance. So say, for instance, you get up at 3 o'clock and you make wudu and you make 2 rakats, or you make 4 rakats and you make dua, do a little bit of dhikr, you eat, and then pray fajr. Right? For some people, like this is my best Ramadan ever.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And for them, that's right and that's correct. And they made effort and they made sacrifice and they pushed themselves and they set a new higher watermark. You see what I mean? And the next
Yeah.
Ramadan, inshallah, they can set it even higher.
Higher.
So that's the thing, is that there should be a progression and a growth. So, and what is the I guess the common thread or the undercurrent of it all? Just push yourself. Try to take full advantage of this month of Ramadan. And as you're staying away from the sins and the social media and everything, and it frees up that time, how are you going to spend that time?
Spend the time, right? Yeah.
Right. And that's the big thing, is that as Ramadan progresses, you should feel a progression. So you should feel, even like the food situation, if it's done properly, you should even feel, you should be sleeping better. You should feel healthier after 7 to 10 days. Because a lot of that's just one of the, when you're working out and everything, the fasting, like they fast, they do periodic fasting just for the sake of like overall health, the health benefits, right? When people have depression, they come to me with depression. That's usually the first thing I deal with. Of course, I'm dealing with like dhikr and the spiritual aspect, but they don't realize that your physical, the psychological, the physical, and the spiritual, that these things are also tied together.
Right.
So I ask them, what do you eat? What's your diet look like? Are you eating healthy? Are you eating junk food? Are you like, the nutritional value of what you're eating?
Oils and stuff that you're eating. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
All that stuff, right? All the additives and just that garbage, the vast majority that you can't even pronounce it in the first place.
Yeah.
The high fructose corn syrup and all that madness, right? So all that stuff.
Just a quick glance at it. I've always been into health, but this is, I think fasting, as I read the scientific aspect of it, is beneficial way more than people think.
And you feel it. And once you experience it, hopefully, inshallah, this is where you get the benefit afterwards, where now, like I just did a whole month fasting, 2 days a week or 3 to 5 days out of the month. That's not a big deal. I can do that, and because you do feel the spiritual benefits, you do feel the psychological and the physical benefits as well. So,
right.
mashallah, it becomes, again, there should be a progression that's there. Okay. Anything else?
No, I mean, you pretty much hit everything that I pretty much had. I had a question about wudu. You answered that. Definitely the Quran, and then, actually the books you've given me. I just want to, make sure I have it equally. I think I can figure out, read one in the morning, middle of the day, and then towards the end of the day, just keep on going up. So I definitely appreciate I was very surprised. I thought that I had until sunrise. See, that definitely clears up a lot of understanding that I was missing.
Yeah, that's why I didn't start getting these all the questions and everything till yesterday, so I didn't really have a chance to. It was kind of last minute, but as soon as it just started, like, I was like, okay, we're gonna have to do something about this, because I'm not gonna be able to talk to everybody individually.
Right.
So I need to put something together so that brothers and sisters, inshallah, can, because we're dealing with families. You have your wife with you?
Yeah, she's over here working right now.
And there's another brother also, him and his wife, they just took their shahadah a couple of months ago, so the same thing. So you have families now that are trying to do this thing together. And it's good that you guys are doing it together. Set goals together.
Yeah, so actually right now she's we're dealing with, we're gonna have a kid soon, so she's trying to do it every other day, and I'm trying to, now that I'm older, I care about it a lot more, and I'm like, hey, don't push yourself too much. But she's pushing through it day one with me, so Alhamdulillah, it's one thing at a time. So
Big thing is for sisters who fast is they have to be really, really on top of their nutrition. And one of the big things also for their suhoor and for you too, make sure you get a little bit of fat with your suhoor.
okay,
Okay, because this is very important for her because what happens is and this is I was I got this from he's a doctor and he's also a biochemist as well. So he told me that when you're working out and everything, also, and for sisters when they're pregnant and they're fasting, you have to have a little bit of fat, this healthy fat,
yeah,
when before you actually start fasting, because what that does is it tells your body, okay, the fat's coming in, we don't need to burn fat. Okay, so like
yeah,
we're okay. So as long as that fat's coming in, is basically sending a chemical message to the body that we're still healthy, we're good, we're getting extra. Okay,
okay,
so she because she doesn't want to trigger any of those bodies, the body's natural preservation
yeah.
kind of things, where it starts messing with her the way that she's processing, foods
And go
and
to yeah.
right, but a lot of also for her, be very careful. A lot of green vegetables.
Okay.
Spinach,
Avocados. Yeah, we got a lot.
because what is you want the iron content.
Okay.
Okay, so look for those foods which are higher in iron because you don't want her to become anemic while she's pregnant also.
Okay.
Okay, and that's usually and for
Do
you,
you
watch out for
is
magnesium.
okay magnesium for myself. Okay. Is there a lot of sisters who actually go the entire Ramadan without and they continue with the fast?
While pregnant,
Yes.
yeah, even some they're even afterwards while breastfeeding and everything. Um, yeah,
But that's important of getting the nutritional value at the right time.
and not just that, but it's also depends on the sister because is she physically healthy enough right from the beginning,
Yeah,
right, to
she's
be able to do
yeah.
that? And then the other thing is psychologically, does she have that like, I know I'm doing this, you
Yeah, she
know?
does right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
So
she's on it right now.
if those things are there and she's and you guys are particular about being healthy and how you eat and everything, she'll be fine, inshallah.
Okay. Okay.
She'll be fine. No worries. And the good thing about sisters, and like I got 5 kids, Akhi, women know, like, when something's not going right, or they're like, nah, I'd like to be able to do this, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, right? They know, they
Yeah.
become very in tune with what's going on with their bodies. Yeah. So, she'll know,
Okay.
inshallah. Yeah. But you're there to remind her,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I'm bugging out. I'm bugging out. Just like a little bit. And it's like, hey, we ate 8 hours ago. You better
Yeah,
smell some
just
food, something. Yeah,
remember this though. Again, like people in other countries, they a lot of times they only eat one time a day, and they still have children, they still have families
Yeah.
and everything, right? But if you look at what they eat is just so much healthier. It's just like ingredient
Yeah.
wise, it's just you know what all the ingredients are, you can pronounce it,
Yeah.
right? Allah make it easy. But if you guys need anything, if you have any questions, if something pops up afterwards, please feel free to contact me. Don't hesitate. Again, because what happens is like the brothers and sisters who contacted me before, this is what led to this. So when you guys let me know what's going on with you,
Yeah.
you stay in touch, then it allows me to kind of like keep my pulse on what's going on with brothers and sisters and their families and everything. So that way, if there's something, then inshallah, that Allah Ta'ala
Right.
has given me the ability to be able to do and to help with, inshallah, I can try to make some efforts in that area. Fair?
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely.
Barakallahu
All right.
feek. Keep us in your du'as, inshallah. And we have a program this evening. It'll start right when Esha comes in at 9:05 or 9:06, and it's only going to
Okay.
be for 30 minutes. So
Okay.
there will be a brother, he'll be reciting Quran, and I will be spending about 10, 15 minutes doing tafsir.
Okay.
The whole thing is only 30 minutes, inshallah.
Okay.
All
Inshallah.
right. So if you can,
All right.
if you can catch it, that'd be great.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
بارك الله فيك. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك نستغيث. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Wa alaikum salam.